Welcome back to We Want Winners. Roderick Adams and myself, Double G, here to recap what was. I'm still not sure what we saw today. It was supposed to be an NFC Championship games, the two best teams in the NFC going head to head for a chance at the Super Bowl. And on the 49ers side, at least offensively, what we saw was a little bit more like it resembled preseason, unfortunately, because of the injuries that happened that we'll talk about here in a second. But Rod, after a game like this, where it's clearly out of hand by the time the second half starts, I felt this game was a lot easier to swallow than losing last year's game, where they have a great chance to win, and ultimately the QB, the offensive line, the defense can't stop. Like, they just can't make plays in the clutch moments of the game. Was this one easier to swallow for you?
I think so, because especially when the circumstances surrounding last year's championship, we know we're better than they are, but due to circumstances, like the offensive line being held together with baling wire and bubble gum, Jimmy, um, their subsequently their defensive line just Donald and them just wrecking shop. Our defensive line not being, just all of that swirled together when we're better than they are. This was gonna be a tough matchup if everything went right.
Yes.
So once once the wheels started falling off, it was like, this is, and then we're online and people are railing about the fact that Josh Johnson isn't good. I mean, bruh. Come on.
Yeah.
What are we doing? Who are
Yeah.
you gonna go get at the end of November who you're gonna expect to place meaningful snaps in the NFC Championship game? That guy doesn't exist. So
Yeah.
I mean, so once look, we were gonna be in for it, I felt, even if Brock was 100% and played his best game.
Yes.
So once that happened, I don't want to say it was a wrap, but it was a wrap.
Okay, so this is very interesting, because I feel very much the same way, and we'll explain ourselves here, because I think there are a lot of Niners fans who thought, Shanahan did help turn the 7th round pick and the last pick in the NFL draft into a serviceable player, and he did it against a good team in Miami. Miami turned it out to be not as good maybe as we thought they were going to be, but they thought, hey, Josh Johnson, he's been around the league. Shanahan, maybe he'll put the plays in his hands that he could actually succeed with. It was just a completely different story against the best team in the NFC, and with the amount of pressure in a game like that, where I'm sure Josh Johnson didn't really practice much. He couldn't have taken many snaps in practice. So Shelvin is hanging out, checking us out. As always, Shelvin, our guy, thank you for checking us out. Hopefully this conversation will make you feel a little bit better about this ball game. That is my intent for 49er fans, by the way. Everyone's heart is broken. I get it. This is 2 years in a row that this has happened to us as fans, but I hope that Rod and I can kind of give you a little bit of sort of the reality of the situation as we see it, not maybe as Kyle sees it, but just from our perspective here. So my second question, you already answered it, was going to be, how did you feel about this game this morning? Because I had many people reach out to me, obviously wanting to feel how I feel. And it's funny because a lot of it was like, are you nervous? And I'm like, I'm not playing. So, there's not that. And I got to talk about the game after it's over. So I'm sort of thinking in the mindset of like, okay, I just want to see what happens on the field, be able to explain it in my own words. And that's more what I'm just thinking of as I'm watching this game. Of course, as a fan, I've been watching the 49ers since '83, as far as I can go back in my memory. That's the first game that I can remember is the NFC Championship game against the Redskins, which was a bad game too, by the way.
Yeah.
But they, how are you feeling about it? And I was like, well, if we were at home, I'd feel a lot better. We're in Philadelphia. If I was a betting man and I could not bet with my heart, I would have probably taken the Eagles with the points. That's just they may have been an even team, but in an even game, but in Philadelphia, I think you had to favor them. So my main worry about this game, I had two main worries mostly. The first one, as we talked about last week, which is the 49ers having to deal with this RPO, having to deal with a quarterback who can run for third down wins. And then also ultimately as well on our side, a rookie quarterback who doesn't have any real he doesn't have a resume outside of this season in these games. And the game is going to be gigantic for Brock Purdy, even if he didn't get hurt. So those were my two things that I was really focusing on. And I thought, though the game was probably played a little more conservatively from the Eagles' offensive standpoint, considering that they knew that the 49ers were without a halfway decent quarterback. But I thought the defense did a pretty good job with Jalen. There was a couple of moments where after the Josh Johnson fumble, they were deep in their territory and the RPO's working and they're scoring in that way. But if you take away the offensive miscues and you just say, okay, here's the defense. When they line up 11 on 11, man against man, the defense played well. You put them in these terrible opportunities because of the turnovers, and some of it is inflicted on their own. The penalties, their over aggressiveness in some cases kind of became their undoing in certain moments. But the defense, I thought, held their own. So then it becomes Brock Purdy. Can Brock Purdy hold up his side of the thing? And he just didn't have the chance. There was the two moments that every single 49er fan who's watched this team closely for the last 10 years looks at the fourth down catch that the 49ers did not challenge. When I saw it live, I thought he dropped the ball. So I don't understand the excuse for them not challenging outside of wasting a timeout. The 49ers waste timeouts all the time, so that really doesn't fly with me. But I would have thrown that challenge flag immediately because I was like, nope, that's not a catch. What are we doing here? And unfortunately, that the way that he caught that ball, I looked at it and I was like, the referee is right there, except he's right behind, so he doesn't see what happens. And so I don't even know how he could have called it a catch because he didn't see anything, but maybe it was called by somebody else. And then Niners get the ball. They run their play and they're using play action to open up something down the field. And they block Ridgeway with the tight end. And I'm going to counter that statement, which is really the one that a lot of Niner fans are hinting at, which is, yeah, I'm sure he expected him to chip him or something to, to create a little bit more time. It's possible Purdy held the ball too long or longer than he was supposed to. So I don't really put that one on Kyle. I'm sure that wasn't the game plan, which was that the tight end was going to block this guy the whole game. Like, I'm sure that wasn't what they circled on the thing and said, yep, we're going to win that one. So in those two moments, I do find the challenge thing unfortunate and frustrating, and the people who are defending that one, I'm not really with them. But the play that Purdy gets hurt, I don't really put that on Kyle. That was one circumstance in one play that it just played, the worst possible thing happened in that play happened. And that's a rare occurrence in a football game. So what were your thoughts on how this game started, specifically with those two scenarios?
Well, number one, I don't know. In real time, I'd have to put a clock on it. I thought the Eagles did a really good job of getting back to the line of scrimmage.
But isn't that the clue, though? Isn't that a clue that we should probably throw that flag?
Quickly. I don't know. From standing on the sideline, I don't know that. I don't know where. I don't know if he's looking at them and watching them, you can see on TV, you can clearly see my man Smith is like, let's go. We need
Yeah,
to
yeah,
we need to do this.
yeah.
So I again from and so it's necessarily seeing that. But like you say, that is again, and I don't know in real time how much time elapsed between the catch and them actually getting the snap off. So I'm gonna go ahead and give him the benefit of the doubt on that. And again, the way it's drawn, do you expect Tyler Croft to be able to Reddick one-on-one, like you say, all game? Probably not. But I'm pretty sure the way that play is drawn up, he's supposed to be able to at least, olay him or do something, chip him something to,
Yeah.
um, give him some sort of resistance. You can't just whiff that. That's just not. I'm sure that's not how it was drawn up on the whiteboard. Is that this guy is just gonna like nobody's as if nobody's even there. I mean, I'm sure that's not how it was drawn up. So my man has to make some kind of play, and when he doesn't, that's what you get. You get your quarterback killed. So again, both very unfortunate circumstances, like kind of back to back. So again, not a tremendous start for us by any means. And to kind of piggyback on your point, coming into this game, again, like you had said, I don't really like worry is kind of strong,
Yeah.
or depressed is kind of,
So maybe sports worry because we have real life
yeah,
stuff that we do.
exactly.
That's sports worry is
Sports
fine.
sport, yes.
Yeah.
So I was really concerned early in the week. I spent a lot of time watching the Eagles, and I was like, holy crap, this could be bad. There was, in my range of outcomes coming in, I I really did see getting boat raced as a legit possibility. My best case scenario was that we were able to keep it close and have a chance to win it at the end. I didn't see any way that we were going to boat race them. So that was like way outside the range of
Yeah.
possibility. And the two things that really concerned me coming in was one, Fangio / Gannon versus Brock. Particularly the stuff I was watching from the Giants game was how they had Daniel Jones in a blender
Mm-hmm.
post snap. They were showing him one picture pre-snap, and then they were just all over the place, and he didn't know what the hell they were doing post snap. So that was a concern with Brock, just Vic Fangio plus, because I know Kyle was going to have Brock as ready as he could be, but once the ball is snapped, you can't, no help coming from the sideline at that point. That's all Brock. He has to be able to determine where to go with the ball. And there wasn't anybody like Vic Fangio in the Big 12. So that was a big concern to me. And then on the offensive side, were we going to be able, with our interior line, going to be able to move those big guys, especially Brindle, because he's not a real physical center. And those guys in the middle there are really big and athletic. So was he going to be able to move them so we could, do what we needed to do in the stretch game? Those were my two concerns. And subsequently, obviously that never came to fruition with Brock because he just wasn't in there long enough for any of that to happen. And we had problems, moving them and getting push, at the line of scrimmage. And again, at a certain point, that became move because we couldn't throw the ball. So that, it was just all bad. But surprisingly, it got out of hand so quickly that, it was just like I started reflecting on, wow, what an awesome season this has
I
been.
felt very much the same way because it was absolutely not the same team, right?
Yeah.
You're thinking watching this game going like, this is gonna be a tough game nonetheless. We have to play pretty much perfect football unless the Eagles are to turn the ball over. And the way that they play, they they don't really make very many risks in the passing game. The only time you saw Hurts go up top was when he knew he had one-on-one coverage, and you're like, oh, my guy can win this. And I thought Charvarius Ward played those balls awesome. I think he got flagged for one holding or something, which I don't know. Some of the fans are really fired up about the refs. I thought the refs were they kind of let it get out of hand, as you saw in the end. Some of that stuff is okay. Some of it was like, maybe let's not call it like it's week 2. But also, some of the stuff was just bad play by the Niners.
I didn't see any of those calls. I mean, like you say, like I think you hit it on the head. It's a high leverage situation. Do you want to, interject yourself as a ref into it? Okay, maybe you hold the whistle, but on the other hand, I didn't any of those calls were, just bad calls. They were all penalties. If you wanted to call them, you could call them. And they did. So we should have not, maybe we shouldn't have, done it, Yeah.
On the other, the thing that I do sympathize with for Niners fans or empathize with is there were some things that looked like that they should have been called on the Eagles, which were not. So what it does is when your team is singled out, it makes it look like, that they're not watching closely. There was a couple holding calls that I thought. There was the Jordan Mason getting held and then pushed into the punter that I thought was a questionable call. I think when Hufanga hit Hurts late on the outside, I think he was frustrated because he was getting held and grabbed. And so that was a little bit of frustration on his end. But the Dre stuff, we were kind of making fun of it throughout the entire season about him. Is he a dirty player? Is he just over aggressive? Is he undisciplined? I don't think anybody at this level can be undisciplined. You have to play with such a fire and such adrenaline in this game to even be able to go out there week after week. I would never call a man undisciplined, but he was definitely over aggressive. There were a couple of moments where, if he had just toned it down a little bit, then they get the ball back and we're playing football again. But, just untimely stuff. And that was unfortunate. But so let's go back to bringing in Josh Johnson. Josh Johnson, when the 49ers signed him, we were kind of wondering, like, okay, who was the guy that they had that they cut for Josh Johnson? I forget his name. But they had signed him when Jimmy had
Jacob
gotten
Eason.
hurt. Okay, Eason.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like, who is it? Like, what does this guy have? And then they just cut him for Josh because I think Josh was a little bit more familiar in what the Niners do. But at the same time, like if you look up the word journeyman backup in the NFL, like it's Josh, like that's just who he has always been, a 10-year journeyman backup. And so I think at that point, though, we were playing with such house money with Brock where it was just like, yeah, if we get to the playoffs, great. And if we get any further, great. We're playing with house money. But that came to be today. And like you said at the top of this show, who are you going to get? I mean, I know
on December 4th.
Yeah. If they had signed Colin, we would have been happy, but they weren't going to sign Colin. Colin hasn't played football in 5 or 6 years, but and not because of his own issues. It's just because of the politics of this crazy league. But Josh Johnson is about what you're going to get, and maybe even better than you would get as your fourth quarterback on the fourth string. He's probably about as good as some of the backups in the league, who if their starter got hurt. But just
they were talking about like Ben Roethlisberger. Is Ben Roethlisberger going to come in and sit behind Brock Purdy?
No.
I mean, I'm sure if he was, it was thrown out there and he addressed it. But I'm sure if you start talking to his agent about signing him to a quarterback, I'm a Hall of Famer. I'm not sitting behind the last pick in the draft. Fuck out of here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean,
that guy's rich. What is he going to get out of bed for? Not to just be a backup on a team. He's going to get out of bed.
He's not going to sign up practice. He's not going to be a practice squad player. What are we doing? Yeah. So if you, and at that point, they were going with Brock. So you talk about guys like that again, and then we don't know. We have no idea when the last time Ben Roethlisberger worked out, the last time he even threw a football. So, I mean,
it's possible Ben Roethlisberger didn't work out when he was an active NFL quarterback, right?
So what kind of shape is week 13 of the NFL season Ben Roethlisberger in, at that point? Like you say, his work ethic was never one of his strong suits. So, that's problematic. So you're talking about those kind of guys. And, I don't know. If you talk about somebody who you legitimately might have thought could come in and play, somebody like him or Rivers or Breeze, that kind of ridiculous stuff.
Yeah.
None of those dudes are coming in to be Brock Purdy's sidekick. That's just not. That's not, they're Hall of Famers. What are we doing? So do you do that? Do you just throw that into the mix and like, look, Brock, we know you've been working hard, but we're going to go ahead and bring this dude in and you're going to go back to the bench.
You know who would have come in? Who would have come in and sat behind Brock Purdy just for the one more chance? Jeff Garcia.
Oh, for sure. 100%.
I don't know if Mr. Garcia would have passed the PEDs test, but he would have been ready.
Yeah.
You know who else today said he was warming up in the parking lot if they needed him? Steve Young. He tweeted that. He said, I'm warming up. I'm warm in the parking lot if you need me.
Oh, we're trying to get old men killed out here. I don't know, Steve. I don't know if you could take any more concussions.
Oh, no. We don't want to see that. So I think the reality of the situation is Shanahan knew if it got to QB4, they were done. But I think the pie in the sky was, can Jimmy get back? If Jimmy could get back and be the backup and something happens to Brock, that's the situation that they're probably okay with. And, as handsome as Jimmy is, he's not the fastest healer. And that's not to even make fun of the guy, but, he's got a future to look forward to, right? He's got a contract to sign.
Season's over.
Yeah.
He is technically not on the team anymore. So that is my rampant speculation is if I'm Jimmy, why in the hell do I go out here, less than 100% and put any bad tape out here, heading into free agency, man, to hell with that. Yeah, I'm just gonna, I'm going to stand pat and try to go back out here and get one more bag.
What did you think about Shanahan's frustration? I know the way that some fans looked at it, and I'm mostly following on Twitter, in text messages with friends as well. Trying to listen to these announcers, though, I don't know. I didn't like the broadcast today. I thought that team had been decent all year. I didn't like their broadcast today. I thought that they were a little. I thought that they were a little off the mark with how desperate this game was, or how desperate it turned out to be. And they treated it like a game in which, oh yeah, Josh Johnson could come in and throw some touchdown passes. No, that was not going to happen, right?
That is ludicrous.
So maybe that's just me knowing my team better than them. They're national announcers. I'm sure they studied a ton, but maybe they did a handful of Niner games. But you're going to the fourth level of quarterback. That's got to be hard, not something you plan from the broadcast. But anyway, so Kyle, his frustrations with the refs to me sort of felt like he knows there's a small opportunity to win this game, and that if the refs were to call the game tight from that point on, where the Niners needed some help to come back.
Yeah.
And so I sort of got it as like, okay, Kyle is trying to get these referees to lay off a little bit to see if we have a chance. But he was pretty bombastic on the sidelines, very demonstrative. You could there was F-bombs flying. That one referee who just stood there like a statue. I was like, man, this dude is better than me, because if Kyle was yelling at me like that, I would have barked back something fierce back. But that's his job. He was taking it. He's got a job to do, and he needs to be the peacemaker. But what did you think about
NBA,
Kyle?
he definitely got teed up.
Yes,
he would have definitely got teed up.
Yes,
but yeah, I kind of saw it as, I don't know. I kind of saw it as him maybe trying to, fire his team up, or it had to be. I mean, you prepare all week. You come up with this game plan that you think is gonna, beat these dudes, and then the rug is pulled out from under you. He has to know who Josh Johnson is. So I mean, it's got to be really frustrating, and I think the ref just bore the brunt of his frustration. I think, it was really rough. Oh, Rick. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it is but 31 teams seasons are going to end in a disappointing fashion.
Yeah.
Again, that was where I was with it. It was a hell of a ride.
Yeah.
It was a hell of a ride, and I can't say that, like, kind of like you said about Dre, I extend that to the whole team. I don't think anybody was not giving their all or doing everything they could. They just found themselves against a very good football team.
Yeah.
Up against it. They were up against it against a very good football team. And it got to a certain point where it was just too much to overcome.
So our buddy Rick Feinberg, thank you for your kind comments, Rick. Rick said, very disappointing way to see our season end. I want to thank you both for providing excellent analysis week in and week out this season. I greatly appreciate you both. Well, Rick, that comment means a lot because, as we've stated a bunch of times, this was kind of just like we just decided to do some live recaps after the games because I knew that this is something that Rod was passionate about, and I wanted to do it as well. And we'll talk about at the end of this show. We'll talk about sort of what the future is with no live games anymore. What are we going to do? We'll talk about that at the end. So so the Niners are down 7-0. Defense holds up. They get favorable field position for the punt that possibly hits the wire. I don't know if it hit the wire. You could tell me that it hit the wire and I would have believed it, but then the dude punted so poorly for the rest of the game. Right. I was like, did it hit the wire every time?
Exactly. That's exactly what I was saying.
And so all of a sudden, CMC breaks off one of his best runs of the year. I thought he was down at least 2 times. Juwan kind of held him up and kind of pushed him out of a tackle. And so it's 7-7. And at that point, you're looking at like, okay, like there is something to this because the Niners are still so talented offensively on the, maybe not at the QB spot, but they still have a ton of weapons. Then Philadelphia pulls off a fantastic drive at the end of the first half. The RPO looked unstoppable. Jalen was okay. I don't even think Jalen had a great game. He probably wouldn't even tell you he had a great game. But at that point, he's just managing the game, and they get the ball back. They're trying to move. They're trying to tie this thing, or at least get into field goal range because they're going to get the kick at the second half. And Josh Johnson is in shotgun, takes the snap, drops it at his feet, and it looks like to me all he needs to do is fall on it and he's fine. I don't know if he tried to pick it up and stay or what, or it squirted out. Something happens, and all of a sudden the Eagles get the ball back and they score another touchdown, and then it's 21-7 versus 14-10, which was what I was hoping it was going to be, and then the Niners get the ball back. That moment, I think that was literally the moment of truth for the game. Not that Josh did anything on purpose to make it like, he's trying to win too, but that was the real moment for me to say, okay, hope is hope, but this is our reality. Like, this is Josh showing us the comeback is probably not happening. I feel bad for the guy. He's a, like I say, he's a journeyman quarterback. He's been paid for 10 years, but he's not making buku bucks. He doesn't have any sort of contract where he can kind of go, okay, I don't got to worry about the next team up. Like, this dude is a working professional football player. He's in a moment that is way too big for him and too big for how talented he is. He's not trying to, it's almost like, I think there could have been this outcome and maybe one more outcome. And this is the outcome that I was hoping, because it was the same outcome when Brock came in, which was Josh Johnson has been waiting for this moment his entire life to show teams that he can actually ball out. What better place to ball out than against the best team in the NFC to win this game? And not that he is winning it for this team for this season, but he's also trying to win it for next year so he gets signed to a contract. So that was my thought, was like, okay, he's going to figure out how to make some plays here, because he also has to showcase for if he's going to be in the league next year. And ultimately, that pie in the sky that I had was not necessarily the case. And reality quickly hit, and he fumbles. And at that point, 21-7, even though they had a whole other half, even though they got the kick, I at that point I was like, okay, I'm okay with this. Like, they're going to lose this game. So be it. Unfortunate. Everything was sort of against them for, nature, the football gods, nature, whatever you want to call it. It just wasn't going to be today. And that, at that moment, that's where I sat. I did see when he gets hurt and he gets a concussion and Brock comes back in, there were people who were like, okay, this is how it was written. This is how it was meant to be. And I audibly on Twitter in text was telling everybody, he cannot throw the football. They're going to run every single down because he cannot throw the football. And that's absolutely what it was. The second Josh went down, they had nothing.
You could see, you could, if you read lips, you could see he was saying he couldn't grip the football. So, I mean, that was what I was saying in chats as well, is that it's not like, that's not the type of thing or the type of injury that you can go in and get it numbed up and play through it. I mean, if he doesn't have grip strength, I don't know what's going to happen between the time he gets injured to the time he comes back in the game that's going to, reestablish the strength in his hands. It's just not going to happen. And, some people said, I don't know what you call it. Was that a concession on Kyle's part? I don't know. What I do know is if you put CMC or Juszczyk in there, in Brock's stead, it's going to be run heavy anyway. So hell, you might as well have him in there handing off the ball, and at least maybe he tricks somebody into thinking that he can actually throw the ball. I don't know, but to go back to your point about Josh Johnson, what I've always felt, what it must be that he's been around so long, is he must be a good meeting room guy, a good you know, be able to teach young guys how to go about preparing, you know, during the week. But he's never the guy that if he has to come in and play, it's gonna be a problem.
Yeah.
So yeah, I too, like you, kind of had this pie in the sky thing that, you know, maybe Kyle is just magic and he's gonna be able to get something out of his fourth string quarterback too, and then there would be no doubt he's the greatest coach in the NFL. But alas,
Yeah.
uh-uh.
Yeah. No, I'm with Shelvin. Shelvin said that he saw on some fan accounts they were blaming Purdy for not trying to get back in there. What one of them was it Charles Woodson? I think I saw Charles Woodson was saying how he just needs to start slinging it and not worry about the injury. Pat McAfee was saying the same thing, and I was just like, guys, you guys aren't watching closely enough. This dude is having trouble like squeezing his right hand. And you know, the other thing about it is, and if you're Kyle, do you want to put this guy in 3rd and long and have these defensive ends pinning their ears back and hunting for this guy, right? Because he's already damaged, he's already not confident in his body, and to then have to sit there and take a beating like that could have been all bad. You know, I did see Terry Bradshaw, who, you know, over the years, I'm not sure that everything that Terry Bradshaw says is necessarily something you should take to the bank, with his head looking like a Rams helmet. But he did say, you know, if I'm sure he has had a similar injury. He did say, like, the problem is with the nerves and is with him having all the what did he say? All the feeling in his fingers. And he said that may not come back today. Like that may take a while. Now, I don't know Brock's injury. I can say I had so I played semi-pro baseball pretty much from when I was 18 until I was about 28. Then I tore up my knee, and then I tried to come back, and I came back successfully for like a half of a season. But then after that, it was really hard. But at the tail end of that, what I started to get was tingling sensation in my hands, and it would, to the point of where after a game, I would try to open the door to my car, and I couldn't grip it enough to even pull the thing. I'd have to use my other hand. So this is my right arm. Mm-hmm. And just from the, you know, I played baseball since I was 6 years old. So it was just the constant throwing and in the elbow. And so there were moments where I was like, okay, the elbow doesn't hurt, but I really don't know where the ball is going. And I would have to pull myself out of games because I'd feel the ball and I'd try to throw it to first, and it would just go like, you know, diagonal, and mm-hmm. I had no control over it. So I had some empathy for Brock, knowing that I've had, you know, a similar issue with being able to grip, being able to throw, being able to be confident that where I was aiming was where the ball was going to go, because you don't have any control over something that is literally the thing that you have control over as your job. So that had to be a little frightening for him, I'm sure, a lot frustrating. He seemed to be like, I think he dealt with the injury. He was like, this isn't good. And then when he had to come back in the game, you know, he was trying to, I guess, not be bummed out. But at the end, I don't know if they caught him on camera. At the end, you could tell he was, I thought he was just going to be emotional, because he went down, he crouched he crouched in like a catcher stance. He put his head down, and I was like, this was supposed to be his moment, right? If you're him, if you are Brock Purdy, no matter if you and I think he's going to be the second coming of Joe Montana, for him to play football the way that he does, he has to believe he's the man. And so if you believe you're the man, you're going into Philly, and in your head, the story is that Brock Purdy wins the 49ers the football game. And that is how you believe, because you believe you're going to win this game. And then it gets taken away from you. Now, that is something to deal with. And I imagine that's going to be somewhat of an inspiration for him in the offseason to get better.
Yeah, I think so. I think, again, when we talk about inspiration for both quarterbacks, because that's what I've been thinking about for the past 7 weeks is how this would land if I was Trey Lance, and I see what's going on with Brock. If it were me, I couldn't wait till March.
Yeah.
You know, you want to talk about how intense, the prep would be for OTAs. I can't imagine if he's the competitor I think he is. I think that whatever's going to happen in camp is going to be. And Brock clearly has shown that you know, he's got some stuff to him as well. So it's going to be a very, very interesting quarterback situation in the entire offseason, I believe. So
I'm glad you went there. I'm absolutely glad you went there. And here's why. And I'll let you continue. But when we talk about what we're going to do for this podcast, we may not be back weekly just because there's not going to be a whole lot to talk about. I think we could come up with topics, every 2 weeks, just about what's going on with the team. Maybe we'll come back sometimes weekly, but we'll figure that out. But for the next show, now I'm asking you this on air. You and I haven't talked about this yet. The Super Bowl is in 2 weeks. Rihanna is performing at halftime. I don't know if you heard, but I was thinking we should come back for our next show after the Super Bowl. We can recap the game, but we can also pick a big picture topic to discuss about the 49ers. And what I wanted to talk about, and I was going to see if this is what you were okay with talking about, was Trey versus Brock. Like that is, it's not going to be Joe and Steve, because if anybody went through that being in the Bay Area, that was the biggest thing ever probably in Bay Area sports media. But that is an argument. I don't think Brock Purdy is A1 automatically going into camp. I think Kyle probably would like to see a quarterback who's in a bit of a combination of what Brock has and what Trey has. And let's put them both together and see what we can get. And so I think there's going to be a really nice competition for QB1 going into 2023's in the fall. So I think we should talk about that. And what I was going to throw out to the folks listening is, shoot us an email if you have an opinion. gg@bspnmedia.com. I have a new email address for this entire network. Shoot me an email. I want to see if we have folks who have some thoughts, and it could be a well thought out email. We'll read it on air and we'll discuss it, because I think it's going to be the single biggest topic heading into next year. We know DeMeco Ryans is probably going to be the Houston Texans head coach, probably sooner than later. They have there's going to be a Jimmy conversation. That will be mostly from, I would say more casual 49er fans. I think Jimmy's gone. I don't think there's any way he comes back. And McGlinchey, he's a guy. There's some guys on the defensive line they may re-sign. I think there's going to be a discussion about CMC and his contract and how they fit that into the big picture. Nick Bosa's got to get signed. So there are some big picture topics to talk about, but I don't think anything is going to be as big as who's going to be the quarterback of this team. So if you are able to come back after the Super Bowl, let's do that. The game will be fun, no matter
Absolutely.
who's, this Eagles team is good, whether it's the Bengals or Kansas City. Kansas City's up 6-0 in the second quarter, as I have it in this office. So that should be what we do. So let's hold off our Brock and Trey, and like Shelvin.
That's going to be all off season. That is going to, I have a social media person who is a friend of mine, and they say the reason that you always got the Jimmy posts is because those were the posts that got the most engagement by far.
100%.
And this Trey Brock thing is gonna fill that void nicely. It's gonna, every other post is gonna be Trey is better or Brock is better or who's better. That's gonna be our entire offseason. I can guarantee it. So yes, I am totally down.
Okay, here's a question, and this will just be a little bit of a teaser for this discussion. Because Shelvin has already said he's riding with Brock. He's shown he can win. Trey hasn't shown it. Trey hasn't really gotten the chance either.
But I don't understand. No, okay, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not going there.
Yeah,
but
no, we're gonna save it. We're gonna save it because you're gonna. I want to give you 2 weeks to put all of these thoughts together that I know that you are waiting to let out. Now that the season is over, and now that Brock actually, he doesn't really have a blemish on his resume, and he didn't really get to play today, but the season's over, and we can really have a discussion about it. But I'll ask you one thing about Trey. We saw how effective Jalen Hurts was with the RPO when they needed to A, run out the clock, and B, play keep away with the 49ers. Trey's tool set seems to be even bigger than what Jalen Hurts does for that team. But if Trey can even get to Hurts' level, which was an MVP level this season, I feel like Shanahan would rather have the one extra thing that Trey has over Brock, which is the ability to run. Though I've seen a lot of people say that post the injury from last year that they didn't believe Trey was as fast as he was. We'll see if that is the truth. But I feel like Shanahan would have so many more opportunities with Trey and that skill set if the legs are there to run like he can.
We, in training camp, when they installed quarterback run game, that one practice, the defense was killing the offense as usual with the pass rush. They run quarterback option. Trey gets the corner, takes it 65 yards. They can't tackle, but man, they couldn't tackle him. They didn't two-hand touch him. They didn't grab his flags. This is the best defense in the league, and he smoked them twice on the outside. Brock is not taking it to 65 to the house on anybody. So again, this is going to be an awesome
we're gonna
off season because I've got thoughts. So yeah, I can't wait. Wait.
Here's another question for you though. Do you plan to go to camp again next year like you did this
year? This year I'm getting tickets for every session.
Okay, because we're gonna have live reports from Rod coming from
yes.
Coming from
that was the first time I'd ever done anything. Thanks to Dan from our group and Robert both for helping me facilitate getting tickets with their season ticket hookup. So
I worked with Dan. I used to work with Dan for many years. Dan,
our group,
that's how I met Dan, was from
the
work.
Best in terms of Dan helped me. He got me get those tickets. I mean he helped me get for the I think he was trying to help me for the draft part. The group is great in terms of sharing their resources and making things happen. So I definitely look forward to doing that. So this offseason, there'll be plenty to talk about. We got a bunch of draft picks. I know there'll be late draft picks, but all of that. There'll be plenty of us for us to dive in, and I look forward to getting together with you every once in a while and just chopping it up about 49er off season.
Also, I've known Robert since he was in diapers.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I've known Robert. Robert lived about 3 houses away from me when I was growing up. All right, a couple of other things before we get out of here. Who are you rooting for? Or I don't even know if rooting is right. Who do you want to see in the Super Bowl? Because all I really care about is what's the best game, what's the best story. A healthy Pat Mahomes, I think, is the scariest player in the NFL. the way Cincinnati's been playing this year with a little bit of swagger, and they kind of look like they're ready. They've had Kansas City's number. That is an interesting story to me. I know a lot of 49er fans coming out of this game were like, whoever, we just want the AFC to win, beat the Eagles. I'm not like, the Eagles did what they were supposed to do, man. The Eagles played really good football, and it's not their fault that, we could not, we could not stay healthy or be in the good grace of the football gods or whatever. So who do you want to see in this game in 2 weeks?
You made, to me, Patrick Mahomes is still the best thing going in the NFL. So that is that thing. Joe Burrow, I'm an LSU fan, so that he has a special place in my heart. But I don't know. I've always looked at it kind of differently. I would prefer the team that beat us go ahead and win the championship. So
I feel the same way.
We lost to the champ.
That was last year. We lost to the Rams.
Yeah. So that is kind of where I fall. My heart says Bengals, go Bengals, but my head wants to see the best, and so that would be, in my opinion, the two best teams are the Chiefs and the Eagles, and then I'd probably be rocking with the Eagles because the Chiefs beat us, and the Eagles beat us too, but they're in our conference, so I think I would, I reserve the right to change my mind, but if you put me on the spot right now, I think I'd be rocking with the Eagles to go ahead and take it all. It would kind of soothe the injury because at least we lost to the champs.
Yeah.
So again, it's not now we lost to the champs 2 years in a row. So that's kind of that kind of stinks. But I don't really have the kind of feelings about the Eagles that I had about the Rams. That's just I've grown up hating the Rams, so that is kind of a different deal.
The only way I could do it for the Rams is because my college buddy and co-host of Thompson to Clark is a Rams fan. So if I was gonna lose to somebody, I'd like losing to someone who's as positive as him, just about anything. He's not a bad fan. He's not a shove it in your face fan. He's a really good fan. So I was happy losing to Brad, but now I texted Brad today. I was like, at least last year we lost to you. Like, I don't know any Eagles fans. So I don't have any friends who are Eagles fans. So I can't get that same thing. So maybe it will be like rooting for the Bengals or whatever. But okay, let's end. I was trying to think of a good way to end, because obviously, the wounds are still open for us, for everybody, and trying to be realistic about a game like that today is probably not the easiest thing for some people. I know some fans are probably so like, F this game, F the refs, Kyle screwed up, whatever that makes you feel better. I remember in 91 when the Niners lost to the Giants, they were trying for the three-peat, right? Who did I blame? Who was it? Who was it easy for me to blame so that my feelings weren't as hurt? Got to blame it on Raj. Raj is done. Roger Craig can't play anymore. He lost us to get right. And Raj is one of my favorite players of all time. So, looking back realistically, Raj is great.
Was that the Jim Burt game when he?
No, that was. Wait.
No, I know what you mean.
No, Montana gets knocked out.
Mm-hmm.
Young replaces him. Young hands the ball off to Roger. They're just trying to kill the clock, and Roger fumbles, and it allows the Giants to kick the field goal to win the game. Some fans will also blame Bubba Parrish for that game because he's the one who kind of let the guy in to take the ball from Raj. But so I get it. This is not it's not an but I like the thing that helps me as a fan, and maybe this is just my own coping. For some it's like Kyle screwed up. For me, it's like here's what I feel really happened, and I can be okay with that, which is that the Eagles, you can't take anything away from them. It's not their fault that Brock Purdy got knocked out. Well, it kind of is their fault, but just because they're playing hard football. All right, so to end it, is there anything else that you that you took away from this game that is even, I would say, tangible? Like, or was this game ultimately just one of those fluky games that you can't really learn anything from?
Well, I know the one thing that, as a positive that I took away from that, I figured, plus 15 passing outside the numbers. The Eagles were the best in the league at that, and we were the worst at it. So I knew they were going to take shots,
Yeah.
and they did. And we held up really well. So that was a positive. I think that we can kind of take moving forward. And two, I thought you were going to go, and I don't know if we're going to do this some other time, but I thought you were going to go instead of, because I don't really think there were any players of the game.
Yeah, I was thinking about that,
I
whether we should do that
thought
or
we
not.
would go players. I thought we would maybe go players of the season.
No, okay, let's save that for next week.
Okay, let's do that
Yeah,
then.
we'll do that next, or not next week, in 2 weeks after the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
So after the Super Bowl, we're gonna go big picture. Trey and Brock will go players of the year, and then Super Bowl. What is the Super Bowl 50? I don't even know anymore.
I have no idea.
Whatever it is. Super Bowl in Arizona. Shelvin
Oh,
needs
and also we'll be able to. Oh yeah, Shelvin. That's his neck of the woods.
Yeah, Shelvin needs to go to the Super Bowl, and he needs to be our
correspondent.
Our correspondent from the Super Bowl.
Well, hopefully other thing we'll be able to talk about in 2 weeks is we've got NFL honors on Thursday. Hopefully we've got some hardware that will coach of the year maybe, and I think to me it would seem like defensive player of the year is a lot.
I'm waiting to hear at the end of this season that Nick Bosa was a little bit nicked up these last couple weeks, because again, he made a couple good plays, but he didn't get close to the QB today.
Yeah, and that's like you said, I fully expect something to come out, because that's like 3 weeks in a row that he really has not been. I mean, he hasn't been to add his standard of impactfulness.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
that's going to be that will be interesting to see if that, I had heard some whispers that he was having some core issues, and that would explain it if that is the case. So, yeah.
All right. This was a fantastic season for us to start this podcast. And I really love doing this with you specifically, because I think, it's kind of funny, because when I picked my partners for these shows, I picked my buddy Brad because he's a radio guy. He did more stuff in radio than I did when I was growing up. He was kind of like the guy I looked up to in college. And then doing something with my son is like so much fun with the Death lineup.
You guys are great.
But doing this with you, just knowing you through social media for, gosh, it's how many years has it been now? It's been many
years.
And we talk about people like Rick and Shelvin, and that's like, that's true community. So for us to, we met in person for the first time about probably like 10 or 11 months ago, when we saw each other at Chase when the Baby Warriors were playing. And so that was literally the first time in person. So to then do this, with you for this entire season, absolutely fantastic. I've had a blast, and I always felt that even when we were just on the message board or on the Facebook group, which I no longer have access to, screw Facebook.
Still, wow.
I always felt that I was learning stuff just from the way that you looked at certain scenarios. So now being able to do this with you and actually talking to you about these things and learning a lot about your perspective, it has been a lot of fun for me. So I've been having a blast.
I thank you so much for the opportunity, because like I say, I've got this, my dream is to be like the Zach Lowe of like 49er football. And I'm getting there. I'm trying to learn as much as I can. I really enjoy the learning process of all of this stuff. And so I spend a lot of time doing it. And this vehicle has really, sometimes I feel guilty about, man, I feel like I'm wasting all this time on, something frivolous like 49er football. But now this is like giving me a vehicle to like make all that time like useful. So yeah, it's a blast, and I'm learning a lot, and I love to be able to share it with you guys. And this has just been awesome, and I look forward to continuing for this to grow and to, like I say, like I told you before, I think I told you offline, I am really excited about what you're doing with BSPN media. And I love, being a small part of the, on the ground floor. And I'm excited to see it grow and flourish.
Yeah, there's some opportunities out there for us to bring people on, and maybe even in the off season, being able to talk to maybe some of the hardcore fan approaches like ours. There are also journalist opportunities for people who are actually doing this for real, and we can talk to them, and maybe we can butter up George Kittle. I can get him some wrestling tickets or something, and he can come.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome.
But otherwise, a lot of fun. So next time in 2 weeks, post Super Bowl, we'll do this again. We'll talk about our big picture with Trey and Brock, and send us an email. gg@bspnmedia.com is where you can get a hold of me and all of the shows. If it's not Trey Brock, if it's about something entirely different about this season, about next season, shoot it over. We'll discuss it. And I really like the community aspect of this show, where we have our friends who we've been chatting with who chime in, and I want to utilize their words as well. So, all right, that is it. I know it was a rough game for us, for fans. Hopefully you got a little bit of enjoyment out of this and took your mind off of that horrendous loss. But that is football, man. That is what is fantastic about sports, is the better team usually wins. And today the Eagles were the better team. Now you play this game 10 times. Maybe the Niners are the best team 5 out of those 10 times, but that just was not today. So we're going to have to strap it up again. Niners have been in the NFC title game 3 out of the last 4 years. That is pretty fantastic. And hopefully that means that the more you get there, the more eventually you will get to the Super Bowl and win. And that's what I'm hoping for. Some opportunities, there's some luck involved in all this, and hopefully the injury luck gets a little better and they can just go on a roll next year. And we're doing this at the same time, but instead previewing the Super Bowl instead of for 2 years in a row being frustrated that they couldn't get there. So otherwise, we will see you in 2 weeks. For Rod, I am Double G. See you when we see you. Peace out.